Let's have an open and honest discussion today about organizational change and the role of the marketer. Marketers are often brought into organizations in senior roles when they are just about to go through organizational change. This is something that I've observed as a pattern throughout my career. And it's been something where I've been on the agency side where I've created the marketing plan or strategy that is to be implemented that does change the way that the organization engages with its customer, or I have actually been brought into a company to make the change. And that change has been way more than the creation of a new brand or the delivery of a marketing plan. It has often meant that the entire structure of a business and the way that it communicates actually has to change. Now, organizational change can be looked at from a range of different perspectives. But what I wanted to do today was I wanted to bring your attention to a theory that was brought up by two Harvard academics, Nitin Noira and Michael Beer, who wrote this article in the Harvard Business Review called Cracking the Code of Change. And what they did in this article was that they talked about this theory called Theory E and Theory O in terms of how leaders can basically deliver a change and how also organizations can operate in these different modes. So a Theory E organization is one that focuses a lot on economic value. Now, the company that comes to mind when I think about economic value, and when I mean economic value, what I'm talking about is shareholder value. It's top-down management. It's creating the right systems and structures within an organization. It's about putting in various programs that are very structured and organized to drive the change. It's about bringing in the best and paying them exceptionally well to get the change done fast. A company like Tesla or X can easily be brought to mind about that, because anyone from the outside knows that if they work for an organization like this, you're not someone who's going to be able to have a lot of say in terms of being an employee there on where the organization is going as a whole, because that is determined by its leader and there's a clear direction. It's all about how the organization delivers that shareholder value. And sometimes this is a tricky thing, because when you look at the case of Tesla, there was a lot of, and still is, a lot of government regulation to be done in that EV market in order for the electric car to be considered the same as a regular petrol car. So the fact that that needs to be done requires an organization that is able to deliver value to shareholders so that it's able to do that kind of advocacy. That kind of advocacy takes a lot of money, and as a result, they have to deliver to shareholders. It's a company also where there is this top-down leadership, and leadership can change a lot. When I'm talking about leadership, I'm talking about how the company is run. It could be one model one day, and then the next it could change into some other iteration of that model. It's not a company that's standing still. Then on the other side, there is the Theory O, or organizational capability style organizations. Now, these are businesses where they have legacy. They basically have grown often organically. And there's people within these organizations that have a depth of skill. And there's people who are loyal to these organizations as well. They don't leave because they enjoy working there, and it extends beyond their skill set. I've worked in both style organizations where some of them have gone through staff at even up to 40%. of staff leaving in like a year, and other ones where basically it's a situation where they've been there for 10 years plus. And both extremes have their strengths and their weaknesses. But the one thing that they share in common is that when they're going through change, it can become actually quite difficult. So, if you're in an organization that is economic value or theory E, it's an organization that will go through a lot of change and everyone will be on board with that. And mistakes can be made as a result of that, which can make the organization quite a difficult one for staff to want to keep working in. And that can obviously be very difficult for the organization because it's constantly churning staff and it's going through this process of change and nothing is really standing still. And it takes a certain kind of person to work in that kind of organization. Then there's the theory O organizations, and this also leans into organizations that have this concept within them that often occurs, which is called the Peter principle. And I'll talk about this in another episode in more detail. But what can happen in these organizations is that people can get over promoted because they're just lovable. They've been there for a long time and they are a part of the furniture. They have done well in their roles. They've got promoted. They've delivered results. But with time, the company has changed. The environment around the company has changed. And as a result of that, what that can sometimes do is lead to a situation where the skill set of that person doesn't necessarily align where the business needs to go into the future. So this creates tension as a result. So we can have declining sales. We can have situations where people become very set in their ways and they don't adopt new technology. They don't adopt new ways of working. They don't adopt new leadership strategies, and it's business as usual. And for most employees, this is a comfort zone because when you think about it, a lot of people, a job is just a job. It's really a lot of marketers like myself because you have to care about where you work in order to deliver value, even if it is shareholder value in some places, to make things work. You have to connect with the customer. But a lot of roles don't necessarily require as deep of a connection with the customer. I truly believe as a marketer, if a company operates in the customer orientation, which is basically the marketing orientation, that they need to think about the customer. Everyone in the company needs to think about the customer in some kind of context, but not many of them have to go as deep as the marketing department. And that's where a lot of the friction happens. So being a marketer, let me just talk about the experiences of what it's like to work in these kinds of organizations. Okay, so if we end up in a theory E economic value organization, you're in for a ride. The kind of person that would be hired in this kind of role is someone that is hungry, who is willing to adapt to change, who wants to do potentially longer hours or be kind of confined to a certain way of working, and then they go with it. They are dedicated marketing professionals that want to grow in their career. They're people who basically are okay with top-down management, where they just get a team and then they basically tell the team what to do and everything kind of happens. They put in the structures and the systems as well. And this can involve, creating a range of processes. It can involve putting in new software. There can be a range of things that the marketer does, and that this kind of marketer is always on the pulse with how they adopt new technology. They might spend their spare time learning about new technology. They might be the type of person that will just trial something, like they might have, for example, a social media presence outside of the workplace. They're also sometimes risk takers, this kind of individual, because they know that there's top-down management, which means that their decisions are more secure than in the other type of organization. Now, the theory O organization, which is one of organizational capability, really suits a marketer that wants some stability, that is there in often an established brand, and they're there to do what's required to ensure that the customer is kept satisfied. Now, this kind of marketer is a great one in a situation of being a really likable person in a business, because they could be the shining light in a company where they are that positive voice of the customer. What they have to be wary of, though, is keeping on top of what the customer's actually saying. They're also a favorite with staff as well, because they're the ones who are going to support their staff to grow in their careers. And this kind of person is also wanting growth in their own career, and they may be looking for situations where they have the ability to travel. They have the ability to maybe do an MBA or postgraduate qualification, or they might be someone who is family orientated or has a lot going on outside of work and is looking for a paycheck. They're not the kind of person that's going to necessarily bring a deep strategic lens. Instead, what they're going to do is they're going to outsource a lot of that thinking to their team, and they're going to get the team to advocate for a lot of the change. Now, neither one of these is necessarily a bad thing. I mean, arguably you could say that theory E is the better one, because if we're looking at shareholder value, which is connected to revenue generation, marketing leans towards this side. So that's why we see a lot of marketers naturally have these kinds of skill sets. A lot of marketers are people that like to keep on top of latest technology. A lot of marketers are the ones that want to see cool new things come in. A lot of marketers are also the ones that love to be able to make a change in a particular industry or a particular product category. So marketing naturally leans that way, because marketing is that revenue engine in the business. But then at the same time, it's a balance, because change doesn't happen instantly. If you have ever gone through any personal life change, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not as easy as just simply making a decision one day to make a change and everything happens. It requires work. And when you're working in a company, you're working with other people, and you're in a situation where you have to actually work with others. And this is where the challenge can be, because marketers, being revenue leaning, could see a lot of things that other people don't see. I've talked about this in previous episodes, but a marketer is someone that has arguably one of the largest amounts of data about an organization, because they see the sales data, they see the product data, they see the customer data as well, and they know what the customer wants now, in the future, and also in the past as well. Because when we create a marketing plan or strategy, we start to understand the reality of where our customer is and where we want to take them so that they gain more value. So as a result of that, the marketer can end up in a situation of friction. And this is a very difficult situation, because marketers, a lot of us are also sensitive people. We're people that think differently. Apple as a brand is one that targets a lot of marketers. I mean, I'm filming this on an iPhone 17 Pro, and I have multiple Apple products. So it's I definitely do think different myself, and this is a challenge. So how does a marketer successfully navigate change? Firstly, it's about ensuring that you have a plan, a marketing plan, because without that document, you don't have a map in terms of where you're going. The next thing is having the right people around you, having a leader that actually backs you, because if you don't have this, you're in trouble. I'm serious. If you have a leader that is also resistant to change, you're in trouble in that scenario as well. So you got to have people around you that are supportive. The team's got to be on board. The leaders have got to be on board. And there needs to be a mechanism within the company through communication and through the right HR conduits to be able to deliver this content to staff, because they can end up in a situation where they don't understand what you're doing because they don't know how you've come to these conclusions. Some of them don't need to know that as well. But the ones that do, the communication with them is so important. And that's why I always say, as a marketer, it's about transparency. I share my marketing team's work output publicly with the people that I work with. I share a lot of the wins of the marketing team as well, and I've done that in pretty much every role that I've held. So transparency is a really, really important thing in the marketing profession. It is very personally taxing, though, to feel like you're kind of pushing or even pulling people along that journey. It's more pushing. It's kind of like it pushing. Whereas marketing normally as a skill, you're drawing people to you, and you're not doing that by screaming and shouting at them. You're doing that through a range of communication methods. You're doing it through a strategy. You're not doing it by just pushing something onto people and dragging people along that journey. So it's not even a natural thing for a marketer to actually lean into. And that makes change difficult as well, because sometimes we're not the best at advocating for our voice. That's another thing. Having a voice, knowing who you are and looking after yourself in the workplace and outside the workplace is so important. Knowing that you're talented, knowing that you have the skill set, knowing that this is most likely, if it's done, going to actually work. I hope that I brought you some insights today in terms of what makes change. If you are interested in hearing more content from me, please do subscribe, and I look forward to speaking with you next week.